Hey guys, welcome back to Ollie Talks Airsoft. Let's get talking. So, what we're talking about today, it's my main plate carrier. This is a Crye Precision JPC-1. There are many like it, but this one is mine. And I'm just going to talk in this video about how I've set this up to make it better for carrying gas mags. A few of the things that I've done to it and why I did a couple of the things as well. Like, I think what's quite important to know sometimes is like a bit of a timeline, rather than just this is what I currently have. It's how did I get here and what are the decisions that I made in order to end up with this. So, right, before we get started, I want to just thank all the new subscribers, and also if you're new to the channel and you're enjoying the stuff, then subscribe and you'll get more of it. So, I got this, this is a Crye Precision JPC-1. It's medium size and it's obviously in multicam. I got this about 5 years ago, and it's important to know that when I first got this, I didn't actually have a belt set up. So I was running a pistol, but it was just on like a regular belt, and I had a couple of mag carriers just on a belt. So I wasn't actually running a first line when I first got this. This was probably the first bit of legit tactical gear that I picked up. And the reason I picked it up is because it was getting really, really uncomfortable carrying so many heavy gas mags. And, you know, gas guns, they're fantastic. I don't use anything else. I don't think I ever will use anything else. But they, you know, the major drawback for me isn't to do with cooldown or the amount of BBs you can carry. It's just the weight of carrying all the mags. And I found that actually using other plate carrier systems that are designed for airsoft, they kind of just didn't cut the mustard. You get lots of things digging in, lots of things cutting over my shoulders especially was like quite difficult, and nothing kind of fit right. Also, when I was moving around, nothing was kind of sticking to me properly. Yeah, it's probably that I didn't set it up properly. I was a bit younger, didn't really know how to do it, but also, you know, it just wasn't as good a quality. So I ended up basically biting the bullet and thinking, you know what, I'm going to go and buy a legit plate carrier for carrying all my heavy gas mags. And I'm really glad that I did, because as soon as I got this, without any modifications to it, it basically started performing like straight out of the box. And before, you know, when I first got it, it doesn't come with any foam plates or anything like that in it, and it comes with some retention loops over here. You have to pull aside to take your mag out. Now, obviously I didn't have a first line, as I said, so for me the biggest priority with this was like, let's make mag changes faster. So I wanted to go with a Kydex system, and I actually found a triple Kydex insert made by a company in America called Midwest Tactical Solutions, and they were really great in getting the product over to me here in the UK, and shout out to those guys. It's still here 5 years later. Still in here, but it did come with a few problems. So I tried, and over the years since then, I've actually tried a couple of different like Kydex inserts that are either made for the JPC or similar. So I tried the Haley strategic ones, and there was a Ferro Concepts triple shingle as well, which I tried and didn't really work particularly well in here. I didn't like it. Sometimes they were coming out with the mag, so yeah, not ideal. So I've ended up continuing to use this this triple. But what I will say is, when I first got to the plate carrier and it didn't have any plates, what that means is it can form to your body really easily, and that actually meant that, as it was with the sling retention loops, this was absolutely fantastic, and it was kind of working like at its peak without any plates in it. Now, as soon as I put some plates in, and this is probably a half inch thick plate that I've got in this one. So I've got a thicker, more rigid plate in the front, and I've actually got a slightly thinner, it's like a 1/4 inch plate on the back. And the reason is that I wanted some flexibility over my back, but actually I preferred the rigidity at the front. And so rather than, obviously I'm not going to carry real plates, although we'll come into that later. So I just went with the slightly thicker foam, and it's like a high density foam in here as well, so it's not, it does bend, but not a lot. So when I put this on properly, it does conform to my body a little bit. However, that creates a problem. The problem that it creates is that actually when the flap here goes down, it's bending slightly, and it's actually not all of the Velcro is in contact, because you've got two flat surfaces here, and because of this, you know, not really having any flexibility for my body, you know, it's great, absolutely fantastic for the retention of the mags. I've never lost any mags in this. It's a great product, but it does mean that without it, you'll see the front panel will basically sit flat on there, and it gets all of that contact. And so, yeah, this would probably, now that I have a first line, or you know, since I've had a first line, it would probably be better to remove this and go back to the sling retention loops on the top, because it means that there's less chance of the flap coming up. And that's essentially, like, that's one of the biggest issues that you're going to find with this kind of plate carrier. So we're going to get into this now. So, stuff that back in. Okay, right, so we're all back inserted, ready to take some mags. Yeah, so one of the big problems that you'll find with carrying gas mags, when you've got this kind of a system where it flaps at the front, if you've got really heavy mags in here and you lean forward, you know, which you can do if you're like going, you know, leaning up against a barricade or something, then this flap will tend to just come down and just flap like this underneath you. That's pretty annoying. And bear in mind, this is like legit, like this is not a fake Crye Precision, this is the real product. So I was like pretty disappointed. You know, it happened as soon as I started using a Kydex insert. I basically started running into this problem, that it just wasn't getting enough Velcro on it. So what I ended up doing was buying some strips of Velcro, and there's actually an empty patch in the middle that Crye didn't fill. Don't know why they wouldn't do that. They went to all the effort of putting a grommet at the bottom, which I tried not to cover up. But yeah, giving myself just a little bit of extra Velcro real estate has meant that that's kind of solved that problem. But it's a problem that I created for myself by not using the product entirely as intended. So let's get into some more of the things that I've done, and more of the things that I've added, and why I've chosen to add these things. So I'm carrying 3 mags on the front. These are Blue Force Gear 10-speed double M4 pouches. I've got 2 on this side and 2 on this side at the front, so that's 7 mags. So 7 mags, about 500 grams a mag, that's 3.5 kilos of weight on the front of this rig, which is all going to be dragging me forwards. Now, even with you know, a nicer cut and, you know, some shoulder pads, which I'll talk about, it still pulls you forward. It's still very uncomfortable to use, and so it's very rare. In fact, I never go out with 7 mags. And not only that, actually the ones that are towards the rear are actually quite difficult to access, just because they're kind of right under your armpit. And if you have mags in the front as well and you're trying to reach over, it's just more for you to reach around to try and get. So yeah, that's something to consider. But anyway, on mine, what I tend to do is, in the summer months, I will happily run 3 mags up front, 1 here and 1 here. So I'll be running a total of 5 mags up front, and I'll also have something in the back in order to balance the weight, which we'll talk about again in a minute. But I kind of lost my place a bit. Obviously, this is just a one take, so I'm trying to remember everything that I want to tell you all in one go. And there's a lot with this, I'm afraid. So yeah, I'll be running 5 on the front, and that's kind of what I would tend to do in the summer, because, you know, these ones at the side, I'll leave them on because they don't really add any weight, and they also add a little bit of protection on my side, so I don't get shot quite as easy. You know, well, I'll get shot just as easily, but it won't hurt as much. So I still leave those on. However, you'll note that I'm talking about the summer, and I actually do something different in the winter. So in the winter, this triple shingle at the front will be empty, and I will run 2 mags on the side here and 2 mags on the side here. And the reason is because they're basically held closer to my body, and they're going to sap up a little bit of my body heat, and that basically means that, like it or not, the mags work better with a bit of body heat. And so actually, if I'm playing outdoors in the winter, or actually even indoors in the winter, I don't use my first line as much, or, as I'll talk about in another video, I do constant admin. So that basically means that getting my warmest mag, making sure that's my fastest reload, getting the other mag, swapping them back, warming them up, making sure that everything's sort of kept at a good temperature. So anyway, now let's talk about, like, we've kind of talked a little bit on the front about accessing the mags, and you can see obviously there's no retention, so they just pull out. These Blue Force gear, the retention on these, again, is excellent. They seem to, they're just elastic pouches with Hyperlon at the back, which is the same material that the straps are made of on the JPC. They're really good. They don't add much weight or much bulk to this, and I'm pretty aggressive, I run around a lot. I've never had any mags coming out of these systems, so yeah, for me they get a thumbs up, but nothing's perfect. So let's talk about the last bit on the front here, which is the admin pouch. I tend to run nothing in the admin pouch. The reason being, I'm usually running some sort of face mask, and I have some goggles on as well. So looking down and seeing something that's just here is actually quite difficult. So I tend to keep everything that I need in a dangler at the bottom, and this happens to be a Ferro Concepts dangler. The type of items that I'll carry in here would be maybe a speed loader, maybe a spare bottle of water or something like that. Actually, I would normally be running hydration. I'll show you the hydration system shortly. But actually in here at the moment, I've got an M203 Moss cart grenade. I do also have some tag grenades, and you can fit a couple of tag tubes and obviously spare rounds and things like that in here. But what's really good is, as you can see, even with it loose, I can undo it and do it up with one hand, and the actual toggle does stand out, and so it's really easy to just reach down and grab. And the fact that you can lift it up in front of you, it means that you can look straight down, see exactly what you're doing, see what you're getting, and yeah, so yeah, rather than using the admin pouch up here and not only struggling to see what's in it, but it also bulking out the front here. So the more it bulks it out here, the harder it is to get to the mags underneath. It's not a huge problem because obviously, you know, I run a first line on my belt, and that's the immediate place that I'm going to go to for a reload most of the time. But when I first got this, I didn't have that, and so, you know, this is kind of still set up a bit like that because I just got used to it. I got familiar with it. You know what you like, and a lot of you know. So let's talk about how we're handling some of the weight on here. And I would point out that I've had this for, like I said, about 5 years. Actually, after about 6 months, it did develop like a bit of a cut or something here. It's not got any worse though, so kudos for that. On the shoulders, the shoulder pads are obviously they're adjustable, but these ones I've actually got. I think these are Pig Brig shoulder pads. So just to give a little bit more, because ultimately this, when I've got this thing fully loaded, it can be like 5 kilos, so even more sometimes. So you need something where it's going to be able to balance that weight. And kind of one of the reasons that I ended up buying a real plate carrier is because, and maybe this might be a bit of a controversial issue really, but when you're buying something from someone like Crye Precision or Ferro Concepts, they've done their research and development, and they've looked into the best way to carry a certain amount of weight, rather, you know, without hurting you, and you know, without causing stress or strain. Whereas a lot of the other companies that are basically making imitations of this, all they're trying to do is replicate the look, and so they're just trying to get like the right colours, you know, roughly the right cuts, but you know, no real consideration has been put into like how is it distributing the weight that you're going to be carrying, and how does it kind of lock up onto your body. You know, how comfortable is it to move and do activities. Obviously a JPC is lightweight, it's a jumpable plate carrier, it's supposed to be for, you know, leaving aircraft with and stuff like that, so it had kind of a bunch of parameters that I really liked, and I do appreciate the fact that this is not supposed to be carrying massive amounts of weight. You know, there are systems built to do that, like ABS systems and stuff like that, or the cage and things like that. You know, there's a bunch, like, but you know, for me, for my purposes, this is kind of exactly what I need. So we've gone over the front, we've gone over kind of the Velcro and how that can kind of flip open and how to kind of stop that from happening. Let's flip it round and let's talk about the back panel that I've got. So, or let's kind of go around a little bit. So we've got, this is a grenade, Kydex grenade holder that I have. This is for basically buddy grenades, and just underneath it is a lanyard with a pin on it. So not only do I not have to worry about someone else losing the pin from my grenade, like no one's going to lose it, it's going to be fine. They can let go of it and it's going to go straight back onto my rig without me even noticing. We'll flip now to the other side, and on the other side we've got a Blue Force Gear tourniquet holder, and inside is a cat tourniquet. However, I don't know whether it's a real cat tourniquet or not, so I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to be using this. I'm not professionally medically trained, and so anyone that was trying to ever use this for a medical purpose, I would warn them of such, and I would say, look, that's not, I don't think that's legit, so probably don't use it unless you're a medical professional, in which case I will absolutely bow down to your expertise and do what you say. So comes the main feature on the back here, and this is where kind of like the evolution of my plate carrier happened. So I actually ended up buying, in order to counteract the weight of all the mags on the front, I actually ended up going out and buying a real second-hand plate because it weighed about 2 kilos. So that was a similar weight to what was going to be on my front, and I put it in the back panel, and I didn't actually realise that the JPC is something called a shooter's cut, which means that it is tapered in a bit more, and swimmer's cut is like tapered even more than that. But I actually bought a plate that was pretty much square. I didn't really know about plates and plate carriers and things like that. I was a little bit naive. Everyone is to start off with. You know, you don't jump into these things knowing everything. You do your research, but until you actually get hands-on with the product, you kind of, it's still a question mark. So yeah, found out that, that I kind of bought the wrong plate, but it did fit. And actually, even with that plate in, it meant running this was a lot more comfortable. And prior to that, underneath, right at the bottom at the back here, I had an S-Tac, double S-Tac Kiwi for an M4 inverted with pull tabs on, because in games I'd seen a bunch of these like side pull ones, and I tried doing S-Tacs either side as side pull, and as much as it worked, you can only access each of them with one hand, and it's still quite awkward because you're kind of going around and doing that. It's not very intuitive. What was actually more intuitive is having both mags just going straight down your back. You can reach both of them with both hands, and it also balances about 1 kilo onto your back, which is great. And if you've got something like this, where you know that you're going to be running hydration in as well, that's probably another 1 or 2 kilos that you're going to be having on your back as well. However, I actually changed from having the plate because I wasn't always using it, and I don't know what I was thinking really, but you know it did its job. But I actually ended up going out and buying, I don't even know where it is. Oh, it was a Haley Strategic flat pack, and I had this running on the back of here for a good couple of years, and it was fantastic. Other than the fact that I couldn't reach anything in it, and I was still reliant on other people on my team to be like, oh, can you grab my gas, or can you grab something out of that, which they would have to do or not, as the case often was. So I actually went out and I bought managed to get hold of a second-hand GMR Minimap Gen 2. It's not in multicam, but it is Australian multicam, so close as damn it. And this actually, because it's got J-zips at the back, I can actually reach this from both sides. So inside here, I can choose to have, I could carry about 8 mags in the back of here, not that I actually would. But I can quite happily have 3 mags on the front here and chuck maybe like 4 or 5 mags in the back, and actually just in lulls in the fight I can just swap them around and re-index them. What this also allows me to do is it's got routing, and I usually run like a 1 litre source hydration. I'll run it over the shoulder, and I'll always be running my hydration on my left side because I'm a right-handed shooter, and most of the engagements I try and control. So if I'm controlling the engagements, then I'm I'm going to prefer my right side over my left side, and so it doesn't make sense to have lots of clutter here where I'm going to be shouldering my rifle. So that's why I always choose to run my comms, my water over my left shoulder. And then actually, in regard to comms, I weirdly don't really run comms very often. I have done sometimes, but it's just not something I do. I like to just run around and cause trouble, to be perfectly honest. Like, just a bit of a chaos element. So make of that what you will. But anyway, and also I will note, like, I've been using this as a rucksack recently, so it does mount on here properly and really flat, but I'm going to be taking this off and going out later. So I literally just whipped it on just to give you guys an idea of what the actual setup looked like. But there you go. That's kind of like the evolution of my plate carrier, which has been designed for obviously basically just carrying a lot of weight and still being comfortable while carrying a lot of weight. And yeah, hopefully I've not missed anything off here. 20 minutes, okay, that's plenty long enough for me to talk about the JPC. But if you've got any further questions about, I think I've explained why I did what I did, but if you've got any further questions, drop them in the comments below. I'll try and get back to you about them. And yeah, until then, have a nice evening, guys, and I'll see you on the next video.